afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be watching us. My name is Marty O'Shea, Superintendent of Schools here in Longmeadow, and pleased to provide the community with one in a series of short updates on our middle school building project. And so to assist today with me is our town manager, Lynn Simmons. Welcome, Lynn. And Adam D'Alessio is on our project management team with Colliers International. And so we're pleased to provide a segment today on the financials associated with the middle school building project. Other installments will be on the educational aspects. We'll also have a segment on the traffic and site design of the middle school as well. So what we wanted to do today, our intention is to raise and respond to many of the important and frankly hard questions that we've heard over the last several months and even years, just to make sure that residents can make informed decisions when the project comes up for consideration at town meeting on September 9th and at a balloted vote on September 30th. So we wanted to start with kind of taking the community through the process of identifying the option of a new school at the Williams site, combining both the student enrollments at Glenbrook and Williams. So we'll walk through that process and then discuss the costs associated with the various options, dive deep on the costs associated with the option that we have identified, and then wrap it up by taking a look at the implications for residents on their tax bills and for the town of Longmeadow. And so let's start with, if we could, just talking about how we arrived at the decision to put forward a combined middle school at the Williams site and a new option. And so one of the things that our friends at LCTV, they'll flash up now for us some of the criteria that the building committee used to evaluate the various options that we had. And among the options were simply renovating both Glenbrook and Williams. So maybe we can start with that. The challenges and costs associated with renovating both Glenbrook and Williams, and what the costs associated with those projects would be, and why that was sort of not selected as an option for us. So I don't know if either one of you want to speak to that, and I'll jump in as well.
The cost of renovating a building, or cost of any construction right now, has been very expensive. Just like everything else that's gone up in the world, prices of construction have gone up. And a lot of it has to do with, the cost of manpower nowadays, the cost of materials, but we have gone through and we've done multiple estimates on these projects. And so we use professional estimators, independent estimators that have gone through, and to make sure that the prices that we are putting together are accurate and what the state is seeing at this time in this area for construction cost.
And so we had ultimately concluded, and if we're showing the cost options right now, the potential costs associated with each of the options, we had concluded that the cost of renovating the two schools would have been greater than the cost of building new at the Williams site.
Correct. Yeah, and to do with the energy code that's out there today. So there's a new energy code that came out just about 2 years ago, and that has increased construction costs, especially for renovating a building, quite a bit.
I think one of the things that's really important to point out, though, is that those renovation upgrades at the two sites is just code upgrades. That is not what we would be seeing for the new Williams Middle School. Code upgrades are just HVAC, ADA, the energy stuff that Adam was speaking about. I'm sure there's more, but it would not be necessarily a brand new school like we're seeing with what we're proposing for the Williams site as a consolidated school.
Ultimately, greater costs and the end product wouldn't match our educational vision.
Exactly.
Right?
Correct.
And so that was, when the building committee sat down to evaluate the various criteria, obviously cost was a leading factor, the cost effectiveness of any of the options, but certainly we wanted to consider the extent to which the option matched our strategic visions, our space needs, equity across the whole town for middle schoolers that attend both Glenbrook and Williams. We wanted an option that maximize the MSBA grant, the MSBA being the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the agency that we're partnering with to accomplish this project. We wanted an option that was, location was a key consideration. I think the choice of Williams, one of the important factors is that it really sits geographically at the center of town, and it offered the best options available to us in terms of getting students to the campus in a safe and efficient way.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And another piece to even bring up as well is the state, the Mass School Building Authority, they wouldn't pay for both schools to be renovated. You would have to choose one of the middle schools to be renovated at this time, and then you know how long it took to get into the MSBA program. It would be another 10 to 15 years before you're actually renovating the other middle school.
Yeah.
So this gives that opportunity to have all future middle schoolers, having one large school that's brand new that, they're not looking at the other kids saying, hey, your school got, updated and mine didn't.
if you renovated Glenbrook, you're probably waiting, frankly, another decade,
Yeah.
or perhaps to get the next school in line with
Correct.
the MSBA.
Yeah, and then all that time that you're waiting, then you're, putting on a new roof, you're adding new HVAC equipment. It's all Band-Aids that you're putting on a building until you can get into the next
Right.
program.
And those construction costs, they don't seem to decrease. They tend to increase over time.
Correct.
Right. Any the other options, Glenbrook new versus Williams new, that was an important consideration, whether or not we select to site the new building at the Glenbrook campus or on the Williams campus.
Right.
The costs associated with locating the project at the Glenbrook site would have been greater than the costs associated with locating it at the Williams site. Is that anything you can speak to?
Yeah, so the Glenbrook site is, if you've been to the Glenbrook site, it has a great elevation change. You have a sloping down to the fields, and up top is where the school is built. The cost for doing the construction there was more because we'd have to bring in modular units, so there would be trailers for the kids that they would have to be learning out of, essentially, and those are not reimbursed by the state. And just the site work alone on that site to actually build a school was much more expensive than at Williams, where you have a nice flat site.
Yeah. Ultimately, one of the factors in identifying the ultimate option was whether or not to include an auditorium.
Yes.
And so auditoriums are not fully reimbursable by the MSBA. The
For middle
MSBA
school,
steers middle school projects towards cafetoriums or gymnasiatoriums,
Yep.
if that's the word.
Gymatorium.
Gymatorium, thank you. And so the building committee ultimately decided that a new school with an auditorium was important to this community. And certainly, I don't think it would be a surprise to anyone to know what a robust performing arts program that we have across the district, and we felt like that was an important consideration. We have auditoriums at both Glenbrook and Williams. The feeling of the building committee was that they wanted to incorporate an auditorium into the new school, recognizing that it's not fully reimbursable by the MSBA.
Yep.
Yeah, the information provided by the principals during our middle school building committee meetings, which are all linked on the website, so anyone can go back and look and watch those, but I'm imagining you'll cover it in one of your educational segments that you're having. But the information provided by those principals about the use of the auditorium and what the students benefit from by having one was so compelling that it's really hard to consider a school without that.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to have a much better outcome if we continue on the path that we're going with it.
I think having a building that's reflective of the community values, what it values educationally, but also one that is cost effective and attentive to the cost. So ultimately, we identified again a new school at the Williams site as the preferred option. That was what was submitted to the MSBA in August of '24.
Yep.
And so the total project cost is $151 million and change. It's an eye-popping number. So help us and the costs associated with this project. I think many residents kind of can think back to the costs associated with building the high school when it opened in 2012, over a decade ago.
Sure.
So $151 million seems like a large number.
Yep.
And maybe we can have some conversation about why that turned out to be the way it was.
Sure. So yeah, the construction costs now are definitely a lot higher than they were when the high school was built. When the high school was built, it was roughly around over $300 a square foot, and nowadays we're looking at just over $800 a square foot. So it definitely has increased, just like everything else has in the world. But again, going back to those construction estimates that we do multiple construction estimates to make sure that we're staying on track. And then after September's vote, if hopefully this project moves through to the next phases of design, we're going to continue doing multiple estimates throughout the project, or throughout the design, just to make sure that we're staying on track budget-wise. But these costs are the average cost that you're seeing throughout the state. If you go on the MSBA's website, there's a great link that they have on there that you can go and see what the average school costs are right now. And right now, we're right in the center of what the average is of cost per square foot. So we know we're tracking comparable to other MSBA projects.
Yeah, I think that's important to know that we're that this is a competitive cost that we're getting,
Yes.
And that it's been reviewed by multiple estimators,
Right.
And that it tracks well with the other data that we're seeing across the state that the MSBA provides.
Correct, yeah. And we have to remember these are commercial costs. This is not a home renovation. This is a commercial building with prevailing wage and, getting a reputable contractor on board. You want somebody who's going to do a great job. And, just the cost of these materials alone and everything that's happening, in the world right now, you want to account for. So you want to make sure you're carrying enough escalation in your costs that when we start to, do construction in, another year and a half, that we're anticipating that those are the costs that we're anticipating, not today's cost.
What does it mean to carry enough escalation?
So right now we're carrying about 6.5% of the escalation. So that construction cost, we want to make sure that we're anticipating what the costs are going to be in another year and a half.
And just to bring it back to something that's not school related, we're seeing that with all of our DPW projects. We are building in a really healthy contingency, because by the time you design something and then you go out to bid to actually start construction, the numbers are vastly different. And so I think it's really important, and that's where the experience and depth at both Colliers and JWA has been really beneficial to the committee, that you're seeing that on a day-to-day basis and carrying a number that we feel confident with large overruns and large unaccounted for escalation.
Right, yeah.
And to back up a little bit, and this kind of builds on what Lynn was talking about, is if a combined middle school at the Williams site makes sense, why not just do an add reno, like add to the building and renovate the building to include all 665 students. That the cost of that is actually, the total project cost is comparable to the total project cost of a brand new building.
Correct.
But the building committee ultimately decided that an addition renovation ultimately didn't make sense for us. And so there's a few different reasons for that.
Yeah, I think Adam can get into the specifics, but that's been one of the big questions that I've heard out in the community, and one that I've grappled with myself is we're very different than what we used to be a decade ago, where you could renovate something or you could repair something and it would cost less and you'd get a great product out of it. It just isn't that way anymore. It is more cost effective to start over and build something new as opposed to renovating it. And that, again, has been something that is a total change in how we've historically done things. But it's just the reality of the business environment now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if you were to ask the MSBA what they're seeing, they're going to say the same answer you just had, that they're seeing a shift from many schools that were doing add renos are now doing new construction because of the cost. And the comparable, differences between the two is so minimal at this point that, going new seems to make sense for these types of projects.
And I think the fully new option also maximized the MSBA grant.
Correct. Yep.
We're confident that an add reno would not have given us the total maximum facility grant that we're looking at from the
Correct.
MSBA.
And we're also going after a lot of green initiatives,
Yeah.
and it's much harder to do that in a renovation versus doing brand new.
Yeah, and not to mention the disruption to kids' education during that ad reno period. I mean, really, you would have, with an ad reno project, it would be 3 years of time when a kid would be educated on a construction site, essentially.
Correct, yeah. And I
potentially.
know we're building a new building on the same campus as the middle school,
Right.
but there's going to be a distinct separation between the two. You're not going to be tearing down or working on a wall right next to where a student is working. You're going to be building at the other end of the site where it's, it's-
During the construction period, their education will be uninterrupted
Correct.
inside the building.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And then just to clarify too, that $151 million, that's not construction cost. That's total project cost. I just want to make sure that's clarified as well. So that includes all the hard costs, all the soft costs. That includes all the furniture that's going to be brand new in this school. That includes all the site work around the school. That includes any of the field work that has to be done, the parking lot. So that is everything, essentially from soup to nuts, that's going to cover this project. Any, off-site, work that needs to be done with, some sidewalks or, stuff like that. It's not just the construction cost. So that includes everything.
And there are costs, we're making some investments in some off-site improvements.
Yes.
And it's something we could talk about in another segment
Yep.
potentially, but as a way to mitigate some of the traffic concerns.
Correct.
But that was, I think, a significant decision by the building committee to make sure that we kind of had some off-site improvements, and so those are included
Yeah,
in
not only the
project.
traffic, but the students who are walking and biking as well.
Yeah.
The safety concerns for them as well.
So that number, that total project cost that might be projected right now, that's all in.
That's all in for everything. Yep.
Yeah.
And so on that 151, I think this might be a good time to talk about what of that is on the town and what of that is MSBA, because that total number is not all on the town. And
Correct.
I think that's really important because that's why this project to me is so attractive, is that we're not on the hook for 151 on all the residents.
Right, yeah. So the MSBA, they have it's a large formula that they use, and we do submissions, throughout the entire design process. And so right now, as you mentioned, the budget's $151,594,000. And so of that, the town of Long Meadow has received a reimbursement rate of 56.37%. And so what they look at is they look at eligible cost versus ineligible cost. And some of these things, as you mentioned, the auditorium, it's only, not all of that's going to be reimbursed by the state. Some of the off-site improvements, but we want to, encourage that those projects are being done because it brings safety and traffic mitigation. But what they're looking at right now for a maximum total facilities grant reimbursement is just over $55 million, which is obviously substantial to our town.
Yep. Yep.
So, and the reality is, communities really can't accomplish these projects without MSBA participation generally.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that generally communities can't pursue these projects without MSBA participation at all.
Correct,
So,
yeah, and that's why communities, they're willing to wait the
Yeah.
10 to 15 years before they can actually do a project until they get accepted into the MSBA program.
So an estimated MSBA maximum total facilities grant of over $55 million. The balance is carried by the residents. And so, Lynn, it's probably where we can bring you in, talk about the cost to taxpayers, and if I'm a resident, if I'm a taxpayer, and I want to understand what this means to me as a taxpayer. Can you
Yeah,
hit that for us?
naturally, yeah. So I think that's the perfect point that we're at right now, especially knowing that we have these votes in September. What's it going to cost? What is each household expected to pay for this? And we looked at this a couple different ways, and we thought, well, we could give an average, but we felt it was really important that individual households knew the exact cost for their house. We have varying values in town, and we built out an estimator or calculator that a resident can go in and use. It's available on the town website, longmeadowma.gov. Right on the home page, if you click on community, it's the first link, middle school building project. And you go in and you put in the assessed value of your home, and it will calculate out the annual tax impact for the life of the project. So right now we have the project with a projected borrowing of 30 years at a roughly 4.5% interest rate. Obviously that's going to change as we go out to bid and know what solid numbers are. We'll update the calculator once we have that concrete information, but at least this gives you something to go with so that you're fully informed to make a good choice for you with that vote in September. And so again, the calculator's on the website, longmeadowma.gov. Residents can go on there type in their assessed value. There's a link if you're not sure what your assessed value is to find out what that is. You just plug the number in and it gives you a nice table showing what you can anticipate for an impact over the life of the project.
That's excellent. That's a handy tool. I expect a lot of residents will access it.
Absolutely.
And how does the project line up with other town needs? I mean, there's obviously, the town has recently built a DPW facility and the adult center. There's a lot of competing needs. How does this project fit in with the overall capital needs of the town?
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about for a long time. It predates many of us here, where we have a debt schedule, and that debt schedule is all-encompassing of all of the projects we've borrowed for. And the timing of the middle school project, we have a large borrowing coming off of our debt schedule that allows us to plug this project in without seeing a massive impact to the taxpayer. There definitely is going to be an increase, but it's not an increase that would be to the level that we'd see if it wasn't based on that debt schedule. So it's something that we look at, multi-years out. Like I said, 30 years is what we're projecting for this middle school borrowing. And we have other projects that will come on and other projects that will come off. And it's a careful calculation that we plug things in and things come off so that we can accomplish the projects that we know we need to accomplish without having a significant impact on the taxpayer. That would be crippling.
And the tax calculator that's available, really it just reflects the change to someone's tax bill associated with the middle school project. It may not be reflective of any debt that ultimately gets retired that would actually sort of change the tax calculator shows how the middle school is a factor, but
Correct.
It might not necessarily reflect other debt that gets retired or comes off.
Correct,
Right.
yeah, that's an important distinction, and it also doesn't reflect any potential future projects either. This is just for the middle school.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, when we set out on this project, it was back in the fall of 2022 when the building committee was formed, and I think the thought at the time was, let's build something that's educationally effective and cost effective, and I think we've arrived at that. I think, all along we heard from the town manager's office, from the select board, from residents that we needed to be attentive to costs. Our intention is not to build the Taj Mahal here. Our intention is to build a building that will serve middle school students for decades to come. And I'm grateful that we have the experience of Colliers and JWA. They understand us, they understand the town. We appreciate the support of the town manager's office, and the select board and the school committee have worked really closely on this. So it's really been a combined team effort to get us to where we are. I think we have a good understanding of the cost of the project and what it will mean potentially for taxpayers. And so we hope that this session provided residents with some important information so they can make some informed decisions. As we wrap up, Lynn, procedurally, the next things that have to happen to kind of bring us to the next phase of the project?
Sure, so we will be setting a warrant for the September 9th special town meeting. That will be published to the website and made available to anyone who would like to see it. We are anticipating just this one warrant article. With a successful vote at the September 9th meeting, it will then move forward to a ballot question at a townwide election on September 30th. Similar to all of our other elections, it would be held at the community house. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And more information will be available, including a sample ballot, so that residents can see what that ballot question will read like.
And we'll continue to push information onto the website. We've done some in-person tours. We've made those available. I've had an opportunity to visit the adult center. We're also planning to do some video tours with our partners from LCTV. So we hope that, again, as we approach September, everyone has all the information they need to make an informed decision. So we appreciate the chance to talk today. Thank you.